Karina Huber there in Jackson Hole. Now, for more on the meetings, we're joined by our global economics analyst, Saruhan Hatipoglu. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Rachelle.
So let's start off with Mario Draghi's speech. Why were investors and why was everyone so interested to see what he was going to say?
Well, they were waiting for any signs, really, to hear when this QE would stop in Europe. I mean, if we go back 4 or 5 years when we were going through that, we were waiting, we're looking at every single word that would come out of Ms. Yellens' mouth in this case. But the reason that I wasn't that I wasn't expecting this at all. I wasn't expecting any announcement because they usually don't pick this meeting to make these important announcements. But the investors were waiting to see when is this QE going to wrap up? Are we going to see it this September, December, or early 2018? That was the main concern for the investors.
And speaking of 5 years ago, it has been 5 years since Draghi made that statement. The ECB is ready to do whatever it takes to preserve the euro. How has this worked out for the bloc?
Well, that statement, I actually was very nervous when I heard that because that creates moral hazard, whatever it takes from an ECB chief at this point in time. That was for outright monetary transactions. That has never happened. But I think it worked out. It just worked out because we didn't see the crisis. Euro was about to break up during that time period. So he said it, but it was never utilized. He did the QE 3 years earlier. He made another announcement, and QE came out of that. And it was a success. Look, we have growth in the eurozone now, 2.2%. Back when he made that speech, it was 1.1%. Unemployment was 11.7 or so. Now it's 9.1. We're looking at only inflation is causing some concern. But when he made that speech 3 years ago, inflation was 0.4%. Now it's 1.3%. So it is also getting better. The economy is doing better now.
So given that momentum, what would you say are the real standouts when it comes to challenges as well as the bright spots for the eurozone?
Well, the challenges are, again, this inflation story because it's just sticky. It's not going up as fast as they want to go. But also, not many people are mentioning it because unemployment numbers are low. But if you look at actual countries, if you look at Spain, Italy, Portugal, there are serious problems, structural problems here. We're seeing new jobs created that are only temporary jobs in tourism industry. So it hasn't made the lives of people better. The other problem is the euro. The euro has gained quite a bit. Over 10% it has gained against the US dollar since the beginning of this year, 6.5% against the sterling. And that is going to cause some problems because if you want inflation to go up, you need to get the currency to go down. And that's not happening in Europe now.
And speaking of a country that's looking at inflation, we also had US Fed Chair Janet Yellen. A lot of people were wondering what she was going to say from her speech. What were your main takeaways?
I think she has said goodbye today with that statement. She knows that she's not going to be nominated. There's a very little chance that she'll be nominated again for this position based on President Trump's language, even during campaign process. The fact that she talked about Dodd and Frank, those two names that President Trump doesn't want to hear, and how good they were for the economy, I think to me said that she knows what's going to happen. She may even step down before February, but that was her goodbye. And I'm happy that she didn't make any forecast as to what they're going to do with interest rates. It's too early. We're in August. Up until December, we expect another 25 basis point hike. It's what they're saying, but a lot can change. So she waited on that, which was the right thing to do.
Now, it's interesting. So you have a very pro-regulation Fed chair with a potentially sketchy future in terms of whether she'll step down or not, and a very anti-regulation president. What does this then mean for fiscal policy going forward then for the US? Is it an unknown, or how concerned are people about it?
It is an unknown, and I wish the US actually would look to Europe and see how Mr. Draghi achieved what he did, because when he was making that speech 3 years ago at the same location that he was here, fiscal policy was austerity in Europe, in the eurozone. Now that has turned to mildly expansionary fiscal policy. The governments are on the same page as the central bank. We're not seeing it here because we are completely divided, the Congress. There's no sign that the tax reform is going to pass, infrastructure spending is going to pass. But for the monetary policy to be sustainable and successful, fiscal policy, responsible fiscal policy is needed. And I think Europe has done it. We haven't done it here yet.
All right. Well, thank you so much, as always, Saruhan Hatipoglu, our global economics analyst and Berry CEO.